right, hello everyone, and welcome into the Garage Podcast, the most inclusive and accessible nerd culture audio program on the interwebs. I am, of course, your host, David Dassaw, and this week I am actually swapping out Zach's. The old Zach is he's taken another week off, um, but in his stead is another Zach. A Zach, he spells his name slightly differently. And he's also from another podcast. He's not new to this medium, which is pretty cool. And I am talking about Zach or Zachary Rancourt. Hello, good sir. How are you doing?
Hello, David. I am great. Thank you for having me. I feel so honored. I feel like there's a red carpet rolled out for me, and I feel like I already got some chocolate sent to my house via you. So I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, man.
Or maybe that was my
I mean,
stalker that I have, another stalker named David. So
yeah, I mean, it's quite possible. Weirder things have happened. But yeah, no, I mean, seriously, the honor is all mine. Like, I was so excited that we could schedule this like podcast guest swap tag team thing that we arranged.
it's like a
So
TV show
uh,
idea.
yeah, basically, and it's also like one of like the top three best ways to like promote your podcast and
Heck
and
yeah.
get what are they, the marketing term, organic growth or
There you
whatever.
go.
I don't know. I
Non-GMO
sound like a
growth.
professional. No pesticides up in her.
No pesticides.
Right. So for our listeners that may not know, you host the Don't Be Crazy podcast with your buddy Justin, um, and you guys have the added, um, I guess, advantage of you go in, you're like, okay, it's we only do movies, and it's just one movie per episode. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm like, fuck, why didn't I do that? Because it like it, I don't know, like it must make things like pretty. I mean, I don't want to say easy, like because podcasting isn't easy, but yeah, like I don't know, the format that I have chosen, like I don't regret it, but like sometimes I'm like, man, like having like a more niche thing, like just doing movies, that'd be dope sometimes. But
Yeah, I mean, it has its challenges for sure. I mean, we have had some films that were very hard to talk about, especially if it's a favorite film. I love the movie Clue, so that one's
mhm,
harder to talk about. We tried doing that for our very first episode, actually, and it just was kind of all over the place. I'm sure we'll
sure.
revisit it again, but I think it's been a real fun practice just drawing meaning out of films, and taking something, as simple as the movie Basketball and expanding on that. We haven't done that one either, but I mean, we could find some pretty good talking points and look at it from a different analytical lens. But no, I mean, there's definitely merit to an all encompassing podcast like this, because it's great because you don't have to necessarily focus on that one thing where
Mhm.
you'll get listeners that'll tune in to be like, ooh, what's the latest geeky news, this week? Whereas us, if they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't like the movie Clueless, so I'm going to skip that episode. So there's pros and cons to both, I think, for sure. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like doing like a really good movie, one that you really enjoy like early on. Like we just came up with the idea a couple months ago of doing like revisited episodes where if we kind of like quote unquote blew our load too early on an episode where it was like sub 50, and we just didn't know what we were doing yet. The show hadn't evolved to this point where we were like, yeah, we sound kind of professional and seem to kind of know what we're talking about, so let's like revisit that topic. And so we started doing that, just because it seemed to make sense. Um, so I don't know. Maybe you could do that later on down the road.
Yeah.
Revisit some
I
early
think
episodes.
our first episode was Big Trouble in Little China. We were thinking about eventually redoing that.
Hmm.
Other films like that, kind of like a redux or a revisiting. I think it's important to do that. Or if we did a movie that we wanted to talk more about, I think that would be fun to do. So yeah, I agree,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are here to. It's this is kind of an interesting episode to have you on for. Um, we don't do a ton of these. I guess the most the closest we've ever gotten to this hybrid format would be like the nerdy news update, but that's all like contemporary news topics, like within the realm of geek and nerd culture. But this is like one, um, one like contemporary item, which is the DC FanDome that the live stream that happened this past weekend, and then just talking horror movies. So that one is a little bit more evergreen. So it's kind of an interesting hybrid episode. So I'm not going to make any promises that this will be like the pinnacle of audio programming,
Oh man, we can make it
but
that way. We can make it top notch. I believe in
you
us.
you are in the words of Walter Wright. You're goddamn right.
There you go. Heisenberg.
Yeah.
Love Tuco. Tight, 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 tight,
Sci-
tight, tight.
Science, bitch.
Science, bitch.
My buddy Andrew, he's been on the podcast a couple times. He's a super talented voice actor. He actually had Mark Hamill reply to one of his videos on TikTok, which was like he shit his pants after that. But he oh shit, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, like he was doing a live stream one day on TikTok, and he was just taking suggestions, trying to get better at voice acting and doing other characters that he doesn't normally do. And I was like, "Dude, Jesse Pickman," and he was just like, "Bitch," like
Very nice.
just one word, and I was like, "All right, pretty good."
Right on.
Yeah. But anyways, so normally we have some have a Facebook poll to go over and a few side topics and icebreakers. But like I said, this is not a normal episode, so we don't have those to go over. So it's basically jumping right into the business, as it were. So like I said, DC FanDome 2021 just happened Saturday. What was it? Saturday
The
the
16th.
16th. I should have remembered that because that was my wedding anniversary. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
What a
uh,
guy.
I well, I mean, I asked my wife. I was like, yeah, "Are we going to do something for our anniversary?" And she was like, "I wanted to go to Harry Potter World," and I was like, well, I'm not made of money. And so we settled for staying at home and watching the live stream. So
Oh wow, that's quite the
yeah,
compromise you made.
I wouldn't call it a compromise at all, but she was she was cool with it, and um we're basically we're gonna go out next weekend. I think we're gonna watch Dune and make up for not celebrating our anniversary on our actual anniversary. So we still have something to look forward to, which is cool.
Cool.
So
There you go.
um so like I said, I watched the live stream pretty much in its entirety. I know you basically just went back and kind of caught the highlights. Um Aside from the Batman trailer, which we'll touch on very last, was there anything that stuck out to you um, for the whole fandom thing? Like anything like movies wise, TV shows, comic books, etc. What all stood out to you as far as like, oh, I'm interested in that?
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Batman fan, and I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like a savant where I can list off this was episode or issue 152 in 1975 when this happened, right? When Two Face got the acid
Right.
thrown on him or something. I mean,
Hmm.
I know enough about things and I can research. I know how to do my own research, but
Yeah.
but basically, I'll pretty much play any Batman game that comes out. And so the Court of Owls game, which I think was just like the Justice League, or what's it called? I don't know. There's a 4-person game that
Right.
seemed okay. I'm gonna look it up because I'm stupid, but um,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like isn't that like the subtitle, or that was like this, like the plot of the game was like finally released. Like the idea and some footage was released last year, and they were like, yeah, you'll be able to play as like Nightwing
mhm.
um
Gotham Knights.
and
That's what it's called. Gotham
yes,
Knights.
Gotham Knights.
It's
Yeah.
on the tip of my tongue, but yeah. So it's the they follow the Court of Owls storyline, but it's Batgirl, Red Hood, Nightwing, and Robin, and so
Right.
and I think it's the Tim Drake Robin, but basically, yeah, Batman's dead, and so they have to they kind of are the protectors of Gotham now, and
Hmm.
we'll talk about the Court of Owls later. But yeah, I think that storyline will be very interesting, and it kind of seems like DC is beating people over the head with it right now between that and the Catwoman show that they launched. Um, I'm not super excited about the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League story. Is that a game? I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a game. I'm tired of Suicide Squad. I was pretty bummed out with the movie. I didn't really like it that much. I thought there were good moments, but it just kind of fell flat for me, and I didn't know what to
Yeah.
really take away from it.
Yeah, I did listen to your guys' episode on the Suicide Squad. I had just watched it, and then I think shortly thereafter, we quote unquote met each other, via the internet.
Oh yeah,
And then like I was scrolling through your backlog and got that, and yeah, I was like, I didn't know how I felt about it either. I was kind of on the fence. Like I was like, yeah, I think I kind of like it. And then I listened to you guys, and I was like, you between you and Justin kind of pointed out a few things, and I was like, like, did I really like it? I still like I'm not super high on it, but I think it's I think it's a better movie than the first Suicide Squad.
yeah.
I think I'm comfortable with saying that, at least.
Yeah, I had more fun with it than the first one, but it just kind
Hmm.
of went nowhere, and it felt so flat to me. And I
Hmm.
thought that they could have done a lot better. The hard thing with movies like this and with any type of fan bases, especially Star Wars fans, if you ruin anything or if there's something that is produced that's poor, no matter what it's like, there are some hardcore fans out there who will just love every single thing that is produced, and that's great
Hmm.
because liking something is subjective, but it's kind of when it's a predetermined like Halloween Kills. This is kind of a different thing. I did not like Halloween Kills. That's a little spoiler. We're talking
Hmm.
about it on the podcast that we're recording tomorrow. I did not like it, and I'm a huge Michael Myers fan, huge Halloween fan. I was
Hmm.
pretty pissed and pretty bored, but at the end of the day, who cares? And so I felt like what I was reading from people that I follow, from different friends, where they're talking about how much they loved it. Don't listen to the haters, all this kind of stuff. I feel like that's just doubling down because they know that it wasn't as good as they wanted it to be, but they already had it predetermined in their minds that it was going to be amazing. And so I think that happens a lot with the comic book films and any type of um, IP. James Gunn can do no wrong, basically, is what people are thinking. And
Right.
unfortunately, I just don't think the Suicide Squad movie was that great. It was long too, way too long.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. People definitely can have a tendency to just stick their head in the sand when it comes to certain fandoms, and will just like, no matter how not bad or not great it was, they will just kind of deny it to themselves. And, like, whatever. Like, it's not my place to tell people that they should think that a movie or a TV show or a comic book or whatever is bad or not good. It's not my place. But you should be honest with yourself. Like, it's okay to like admit that something's not good. Like, if it's not good, then it's not good. Like, not every director is gonna pump out pure gold.
Exactly.
um so and I'm kind of with you on Halloween Kills. We don't have to get into it too much because I know you. Yeah, I don't want you
I
to
don't.
bust your
I don't
nut.
want to waste my time with that.
Yeah, yeah. I know you're gonna talk for 90 minutes. Tomorrow about the movie. So We don't have to get into that, but um, so yeah, with the fandom, as far as movies go, we got we got a very small slice of Black Adam footage. I'm talking like super small. Like it was like 15-20 seconds long maybe. But looked kind of cool. I'm excited to see The Rock as like a superhero. Should be kind of neat. Um
The Rock in anything is great. He can stop
yeah, I'm
earthquakes. He can tame giant lizards and gorillas and rampage, and he can drive Too Fast and Too Furious. So
Yeah, I actually liked the movie Rampage. Like, I thought it was pretty fun. Like, I mean, if you go in with the right attitude, like, hey, this movie is going to be big dumb fun, then big dumb fun is what you're going to get, and you'll be satisfied. Like, it's
yeah,
you know not super complicated. Uh, we also got some behind the scenes looks at the new Aquaman movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, that's due out in theaters December 16th
did you?
of
Th-
next year.
so with those with both the Black Adam and the Aquaman teasers,
Right.
I
Mhm.
was really excuse me, I was really, I don't want to say turned off, but just I couldn't have cared less because they were teasers to the extreme. And the thing that bugs me, just kind of like what I was alluding to earlier, where people make these definitive statements, but you have Pierce Brosnan coming on and being like, "This is the biggest action movie I've ever done," and everyone talking about this is going to be the best movie ever, blah blah blah. All these actors just praising this film, and I get it. You want to get us hyped up and whatnot. That's why you have the intro with The Rock, but man,
Mhm.
I really don't care about Black Adam. Like, I'm excited because it's The Rock and I'll see it, and but I'm also kind of superhero fatigued in certain aspects.
Sure.
Aquaman was cool, and so I'm excited to see what happens with that. But it's just, I mean, these people are talking about how this is going to be the greatest movie ever, and I can't believe these action scenes we're doing. And it's just kind of like, bro, I get it, but you don't have to necessarily keep saying that. We're gonna go see it. Don't worry. So
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I think maybe they feel like some sort of obligation because they're working so hard on it. I'm sure they are working like incredibly hard. But at the same time, you're right. It's like, yeah, we get it. Like, it's a superhero movie. And it's like, who has heard of Black Adam aside from like hardcore DC fans? Like, I have never heard of Black Adam before they announced last year at their DC FanDome that they were going to do a Black Adam movie. I was like, oh, cool. The Rock's in it. That's cool, but I don't know who the fuck Black Adam is. Yeah, but so I mean, I get like people, the people working on the movie, like trying to get you pumped up, but
sure.
yeah. Um, so there's that. There is we got a teaser trailer for the new Peacemaker series on HBO Max that comes out January 13th. I when they released the first like very short teaser trailer, I think it was kind of like sandwiched in with a bunch of other teasers for other HBO Max series that were coming soon. And that I think that happened maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or so. And I was like, oh, Peacemaker thing. And I was like, wait, didn't he fucking die?
No, did you watch the post credit scene?
Yeah, I
Oh,
did not watch the. So yeah, so okay, so yes, now I am like my initial thought was like, okay, so is this like a prequel to the Suicide Squad? Like, what the hell's going on here? And so I started doing a little bit of digging. Come to find out that I totally fucking missed a post
oh
credit scene
man.
where I don't know that they pull him out of the rubble or they show him in back at Miranda Cosgrove's studio, and they're like pumping him full of life juice. I don't know what the fuck happens.
He was just in a
Uh,
hospital bed, and they like the blonde gal, and then the computer hacker guy were like, hey,
right.
we have to use him for a mission or something like that, and he's
Hmm.
whatever. It sets up and it says the Peacemaker will return or something. I mean, that was all. James Gunn announced the Peacemaker TV show before Suicide Squad came out, so Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, a lot of people were expecting that. I wasn't expecting that to be a post credit scene, but I also wasn't expecting him to like basically die in in the movie. So yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And John Cena's awesome. I really like John Cena a lot. I think he's funny. I've liked what he's been in. He tries, and he seems like a cool
Mhm.
guy to hang out with.
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy to go have a beer with,
I
as
know.
they as the good old boys like to say.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, should be fun. I mean, I'll probably end up watching it. You know, I have HBO Max, and it's slowly becoming like one of my favorite streaming services. Like,
Oh,
feel
absolutely.
I feel like it has ebbs and flows where I'll get on there and be like, "There's fucking nothing on here," and then like right now, like they just kind of like Peacock, where they just loaded it down
Yeah.
with horror movie shit.
Yeah.
So
Peacock did
so
a
if
really
you're
good
in,
job. So did HBO
yeah,
Max with that. Yeah.
yeah, both of those platforms, like they up the ante in a big way for this month. They were like, "Oh, you want some shit to watch? Well,
Yeah.
get ready to shit your pants off."
Well, and HBO Max is actually my favorite streaming service. Just the
Oh yeah.
content they have is incredible. So last week
Hmm.
tonight, I May Destroy You, Succession. I think is, and I'm saying it here, first, it's going to be in the pantheon of TV shows, like one of the greatest shows of all time. It's absolutely incredible. So Succession is on there. Barry's really really good. The Sopranos, Deadwood, The Wire, like one of the greatest shows of all time. HBO knows how to make a show, and sure they have some
Yeah.
duds here and there. Like I did not like White Lotus. I liked the music and I liked the style, but I could not stand the people in it, and I hated the story. So that movie
Right.
or that show sucked. But HBO Max, I trust. They know how to pump out good content. So yeah.
For sure. Have you ever watched 6 Feet Under by
No, but
chance?
I've heard good things about it. So
Yeah, it kind of ran parallel to The Wire and The Sopranos. Like
right,
it
yeah,
ran, it only ran for I think 5 seasons, but that's all you can handle because it is so emotionally draining. Like it's about a family who runs a funeral home, for fuck's sake. So yeah, it is, and like at the beginning of every episode, like I don't think it's necessarily the considered the cold open, but at the beginning of every episode, like someone dies, and that is what sets off and kind of like sets the tone for each episode. Um, and there's moments of brevity and whatnot, and plenty of humor, but it's a pretty pretty serious show that talks about death a lot. So
right.
when you're feeling courageous, go pick that one up. It's a good one.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, a couple other things. We got a first look at the Flash. It was, I guess, kind of a teaser trailer. Um, we saw him with a couple alternate versions of himself, and then we got like a, I don't know if it was the bat suit or the actual Batman, but this is supposed to be like the return of Michael Keaton as Batman, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Have you seen the Flashpoint Paradox animated movie, or have you read the Flashpoint Paradox at all?
No, it is on my list. Just like movies, my comic book read list is incredibly long, always growing, never gets any shorter. But the Flashpoint storyline is definitely on there because I'd like to read it before I'm at that point now, like in my comic book reading, where I would really like to read the book before I go watch the movie, just
Yeah.
to have like a working knowledge or cursory knowledge of what the fuck is going on.
Well, and they do a pretty good job of adapting it. It's actually on HBO Max because HBO Max has the DC properties, so they have a ton of
Oh,
the animated movies, and the DC animated movies are awesome. So yeah,
okay.
Flashpoint Paradox, just too long didn't read version. Basically, the Flash can run so fast that he goes back in time because Reverse Flash uh, does something. Like, he like uses this machine or whatever. And anyways, Flash goes so far back in time, and because his mom died, Barry Allen's mom was killed, and
Right.
he goes back to an alternate reality where his mom is alive, and he's like, "What the hell?" And then um, he actually is like Reverse Flash, and then Batman is like a villain, and all like Lex Luthor's a good guy, and Superman's a villain. It's all these weird things that have happened
Hmm.
because it's an alternate universe, so he has to get everyone back to the original, and it's pretty crazy stuff. There's a lot of there's a lot of violence in it, and there's a lot of just
Sure.
dark. I don't even know, dark content, I would say, but it's really well done, and yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of it. So I'm excited because Batman plays a key role in that. He's a
Hmm.
much older Batman. He's not like a Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns Batman, but he is a much older, different style Batman. I think he uses guns.
Right.
So I don't know if Michael Keaton will be having a gun with him, but I mean, there's no surprise that reveal of Batman's cowl at the end of it. We're like, oh shit, because you could tell by the long pointy ears that is the '89 Batman. That is the Tim Burton Batman. So I was excited for
Right.
that. I was excited to see the multiple flashes. Like you saw, there was like
Hmm.
maybe a girl Flash, and then there was Ezra Miller with longer hair who might have been Reverse Flash. Like we don't know. So I think
Right.
that was pretty rad.
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool. You when you were talking about the Flashpoint storyline, like it reminded me. Are you familiar with the Superior Spider-Man at all? Like I know this is
Um,
jumping into Marvel territory, but
so like I feel like I've heard of it, but no, I'm not familiar enough. I can't accurately say I'm familiar.
yeah, Spider-Man, he's definitely one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, just across the board, like comic books, movies, etc. And I chose a really weird place to start reading the Spider-Man comics, and that was Superior Spider-Man. And a little bit of a spoiler alert. This is where like Peter Parker, he defeats Doc Ock, and Doc Ock is basically on his deathbed, but Doc Ock finds a way to switch bodies with Peter. And so Peter is the one that ends up dying, but he dies in Doc Ock's body.
Hmm.
So then Doc Ock is like living through Peter, and he's like, fuck you, Peter. Like, I'm going to the better Spider Man that you could ever be. And so he's like nailing all these chicks, and like, he basically becomes like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man
Spider-Man 3.
3, where he's like doing the silly dancing and stuff, just acting like a total ass. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. But anyways,
That's
like I
awesome.
said, that's it. Yeah, like I said, it was a super weird place to decide to start reading Spider-Man comics, but it was a lot of fun. And plus it like butted up right into the Into the Spider-Verse
Ah, yeah.
storyline, which was pretty cool. So it was cool to like learn about that beforehand, because I know we got the that movie coming up in December, so should be
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely.
Then second to last, we got the Shazam: Fury of the Gods behind the scenes looks. That's coming in theaters in 2023, so we got a little bit of time before that one. Um, Zach, what did you think of the first Shazam movie? I thought it was decent enough. What did you think?
I had a really fun time with it. I thought
Yep.
it was totally relaxed. Shazam was one of those characters I knew about Billy Bats, but I didn't really know a ton about him, and I never had read a Shazam graphic novel. I mean, like when I started reading New 52, or there were some other ones that I've done. I can't remember what else I've read, but Shazam was in it, and so I understood what his abilities were. But it was it was cool to see because his siblings, I can't remember what the rest of them are called, but to see all of them actually have that final showdown, and then they all have powers, I thought that was really neat. So
Mhm.
I had a good time with it. I like Mark Strong a
Yeah.
lot. He's a fun bad guy, but yeah, it was a solid film, and I like the ending when Superman comes in too.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was pretty fun. It was a odd change up from the regular fare that we're kind of used to with DC at this point. Like it's kind of like they're seems like they're either all over the place with like tonally, or they're like always trying to drive the point home, like, oh, we're serious. Like
Yeah,
Marvel are they're the silly ones and we're the serious ones. So it was nice to like have DC explore like a more slightly lighthearted character that's it shouldn't be taken too seriously. So
exactly. He's a kid.
yeah, yeah, yes, exactly. Um, but yeah, so last but not least, we have dun 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 the Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main event. So what did you think of this trailer?
So, I'll be honest. I'm a diehard Batman fan, huge. I'm not, that Wikipedia guy. I just have a problem remembering things in general. But
Mhm.
absolutely love Batman. I mean, he's been a very important figure in my life during my formative years, during my childhood, all that kind of stuff. And I have a Batman wall in my bedroom. I have like every Batman Funko Pop I can collect. I am just a Batman nerd. So I am very excited for any iteration that we get of The Dark Knight. But I will admit that this trailer was a little underwhelming to me because
Okay.
the first trailer we had last year, I I've been sold on Robert Pattinson because I've seen him in some other really good movies like Good
Yeah.
Time, and just he has some other roles
That
he's been
was
in. Tenet, he was
that was
actually
the
really good in.
that was the Safdie brothers movie, right? Good
Yeah,
Time.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
do not like the Safdie brothers, but I did like his performance in that. I think he really has those chops, and same thing with The Lighthouse. He did a really good job. So I
Hmm.
was, I was sold. I mean, people didn't like Michael Keaton as Batman, and look what he did. So I'm always very very happy with it. And Matt Reeves is, yeah, I trust him wholeheartedly. So
Hmm.
I was very excited when we get that scene when he just beats the shit out of that guy, and he's like, I'm vengeance. I was like,
Right.
yeah. I watched that probably 30 times. I kid you not. So
Yeah.
this one was really good. Don't get me wrong. It's just I think I needed to watch it a few more times because there was just so much going on. I'm still blown
Yeah.
away with how Colin Farrell looks. I never would have guessed. You could have asked me who's playing him, and I never would have gotten it right. I cannot believe that Colin Farrell is the Penguin.
Right. Yeah. And he's the guy like basically in the last scene of the trailer, right? He's the guy like driving the car and like yeah. Okay.
He
Yeah.
flips, and yeah,
Yeah, I never would have guessed in a million years who that is either. They did such a great job with like the facial prosthetics, like whatever they end up doing for him. Like man, um, yeah, it was crazy. But
so
um,
the trailer definitely has vibes of a David Fincher film, specifically Seven,
sure,
where it kind
yeah,
of opens up
yeah,
where everything's backlit, I shouldn't say backlit, but everything's like low light, and
hmm,
there's a ton of rain, and we get a lot of reflections and neon lights and whatever. But it's very very similar to that. And with Edward Nigma, I'm assuming it's Edward Nigma for the Riddler getting arrested at the coffee shop. It's just like Kevin Spacey, John Doe getting arrested in Seven. I think there's a lot of parallels between it. I think that is on purpose because Seven is definitely that noir, that dark noir film of a different generation. And so I think they're going for that with this because we have to remember that Batman is a detective through and through.
right,
So it's going to be weird to see, My Chemical Romance detective, because that's kind of what it looked like with Robert Pattinson's emo haircut and his dark eyes. But I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it because this
yeah,
is year two Batman. Basically, that's what Matt
hmm,
Reeves has come out and said, that this is year two Batman. So he is not,
yep,
he's still green, but he is not a rookie. It's his sophomore
hmm,
year, and he's still trying to figure shit out. So you're talking like early 20s is this Batman, and
yeah.
um and a lot can happen, and I think it's just so flexible. um are you familiar, so what do you think is happening in this trailer? How do you think this movie's going to kind of play out? Because I have some theories about it.
Um, I honestly haven't spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. Like I think it does depend on the movie, but for the most part, if it's something that I'm really, really looking forward to, I'll almost actively prevent myself from trying to figure things out just because I want when I go to see it in the theater, I want things to be as surprising as humanly possible. Um, like because if I try and figure things out and be like, oh, I bet this is going to do this and this means this and it'll lead to this, and if I get any or all of that right, like it's happened before and I felt like shit. Like I kind of felt like I spoiled the movie for myself. So a lot of the times, like I said, with movies like this that are a big deal for me, I will kind of actively avoid thinking about it too much. But I do agree with you. Like it definitely has like a neo noir feel to it. Like I love the idea of a year two Batman where he's slightly unhinged, or
Hmm.
maybe not slightly, definitely unhinged, and he just hasn't. had the experience of the Batman iterations that we're used to for the most part, where they have the experience, so they know how to like rein in the emotion and have control of their emotions. This is like a younger Batman who possibly has his just his anger lets it escape from him. Hence that the beating the piss at the fucking guy in the first
Yeah.
trailer.
Yeah.
um but yeah, overall, like I kind of side with you. Like I was slightly underwhelmed, but I was still super excited to get more glimpses into the movie. I loved the tone that the first trailer set, just like the look and feel of the movie, like the color palette, the way that everything looked. I was like Fincher esque. The way you put it is just like perfect. And David Fincher is in like my top 5 directors of all time. Like he
Oh
might
yeah.
be my favorite director.
Oh yeah, totally.
He's just so he took one of my favorite books and made it better. Like Chuck Palahniuk has gone on record several times saying like, oh yeah, like Fight Club the movie is fucking better than my book.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um but yeah, I don't know, like I'm super excited. I couldn't really tell you what might happen. I think I remember reading that we're going to see more than just like the Penguin and the Riddler. I think we're gonna have like what do they call it, like the Rogues Gallery, kind of come like thread in and out through the movie possibly. So I'm not really sure what to expect, but whatever it is, like I will be excited for it. I am excited for it. So
Yeah, I don't know. So this is my theory on it. I don't know how many villains we should have, because I think a story like this needs to focus on the psychology that is Batman,
mhm.
and the fear both he induces and the fear that he has for himself, because Batman was created out of anger, of fear, of sadness, and he inflicts that on other people. Um, so I think it's going to be a fascinating case study for this, because I think Pattinson can play that role really well, and this already
Mhm.
seems like it's going to be an unhinged Bruce Wayne, a angry, makes mistakes, doesn't care if he gets shot point blank, like that amazing scene where he's walking through, and all it's all dark, and he's just getting shot with guns, and that's what's lighting the scene, and he just
Yeah.
walks through and just starts beating the shit out of the people. Um,
Mhm.
so this fun fact, this is actually Greg Fraser is the cinematographer for this film. He did
Okay.
Rogue One, and so he's
Oh,
responsible
okay.
for that amazing, like one of my favorite Star Wars moments of all time, when Darth Vader is we finally get to see him just
Oh.
rule ass in the hallway and just completely obliterate those people. I mean, there are remnants of that in this trailer, so I'm very very excited. Also, he is a cinematographer for Dune as well, the which launches on the
Oh,
22nd.
nice.
So he knows what he's doing. So I'm very very excited to see what's going to happen with that. But I know that it's in good hands, and so therefore I'm okay with it. But this Batman iteration is going to be different, because I think the coolest thing about Batman is he's one guy, but it's not just that. It's his reputation, and it's the fear of it. And they touched on this in The Dark Knight, like when they show a low level drug dealer trying to deal drugs, and he looks up and sees the bat symbol. He's like, ah, no, man, not tonight, because that's that
Mhm.
fear that at any moment Batman can get you. It's very much like a Jason Voorhees or a Michael Myers, to remain topical. Like, dude, it's
Right.
late. We better. Someone just got killed. It's got to be Michael Myers, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Evil dies tonight. But fuck, fuck that movie. But I know, but it's. I think it's such a fascinating thing where you have this Terminator esque, Jason Voorhees esque Batman person in this persona, because Robert Pattinson is not a big guy, but it's just that whole holy shit, this is the Batman. He just took out like 12 goons, in one fell swoop, and the
Mhm.
stories just grow from that. And excuse me, I think the legend itself is what's so cool, and so I think that that's what they're going to kind of go with for this, is maybe focus more on him trying to figure things out. It's definitely not Batman Year One, where no one knows who he is. The police don't know where he is. I mean, Jim Gordon has his bat signal. We see that.
Mm-hmm.
What I think this is going to be, because the Riddler is such a fascinating character. He's, I don't want to spoil certain things if people want to watch it, but he is in some different awesome graphic novels that people should read. He's not the Jim Carrey funny man. He is very, very deranged and twisted. He does some funny things, but he is still a very deranged and twisted person. And I enjoy what they're doing with this. But what I think is going to happen, because just like you were saying, I don't want to be spoiled by things,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, we have 6 months until this movie comes out, and I will eat up every piece of Batman footage and
Yeah.
leak that I can get. It's just it's too amazing for me, and I love it's like crack, man. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
No.
real good crack. I don't do crack, but you know what I mean. So
The
my
breadsticks are like what? The
yeah,
breadsticks they're like scrapbooking. I don't know, something from your world.
there you go. Exactly. So but anyways, it's just one of those things that I'm so excited for. And my theory on it and things that I've read and watched, and I think it's incredibly apparent if you go back. But are you familiar with the Court of Owls? I think we talked about this earlier when I was talking about Gotham Knights video game.
Honestly, I've read, I think, 4 different comic book volumes with Batman, but I can't. I honestly can't recall if the Court of Owls was mentioned. It might have been. It's been like a year or so that I've read anything Batman related, unfortunately. So,
Right.
yeah, I'll just say, yeah, it's definitely a foreign entity to me.
So Court of Owls is it's newer. It's a newer concept. About 2011, I think, is when it came out. But
Okay.
basically, it was for the New 52 when they redid everything. Scott Snyder was I think his name is Scott Snyder. He penned it. He was in charge of it. But basically, what happened was there is this secret society that is made up of the wealthy, the rich, the top one percenters of Gotham, who
Hmm.
want to take out Bruce Wayne, because this is about year 5 of Bruce Wayne, which matches up with this. This is year 2, so he's in his infancy of being the Dark Knight, and
Hmm.
Bruce wants to help reform Gotham City, put money into infrastructure to change things up, to make it a better Gotham. Now, this high society, these elites, they don't want that, because they're running the criminal underworld. They're running all these things in a certain way in the shadows.
Okay.
So, what they do is they capture him and put him through this labyrinth, and it's where you kind of go crazy. But he has to kind of uncover what's going on, and he deals with assassins. And so the Court of Owls have these assassins called Talons, Owl Talon. And
Sure.
it's fascinating, because it's not just an isolated comic issue. It goes a lot further throughout the New 52 series, and then they develop more from that. So there's a ton of storylines you can work with for it, and a lot of stuff happens. Nightwing gets involved, Dick Grayson,
Okay.
and there's a lot. So in this trailer, what I've been able to see and decipher is the Riddler talks about the lies, and he talks about the corruption and stuff. Um, and with him kidnapping, the mayor, the police commissioner, and all these other people, what I think is happening is he is either trying to expose the Court of Owls, or he is working for the Court of Owls, because the mayor and the police commissioner and all them want to reform the city just like Bruce Wayne does, and
Hmm.
the Court of Owls does not want that. So they are either employing the Riddler to help them get rid of the Batman, or the Riddler is working against all of them, and he's trying to expose Bruce Wayne for who he is. So then there's this other theory that maybe Bruce Wayne is basically, I wouldn't say brainwashed, but maybe he's doing the Court of Owl's bidding. Like, there's a corrupt Gotham City Police Department, and the Batman
Mm.
thinks that he's doing the right thing, but in reality, he's really a pawn to the Court of Owls. And then when push comes to shove, and he finds out with him and Selena Kyle, they find out, they go ape shit. And yeah, there's some real cool stuff happening. I'm very, very excited. I don't want to get ahead of myself, because then I'll start rambling. But it's yeah, I'm pumped, man. And I think that just seeing that scene, like when he chokes the guy, and he has like a taser in his hand, I think that's so cool. The
Hmm.
practicality of the Batmobile and his suit, Everything
Right.
around it looks real gritty, salt of the earth kind of stuff, and I'm a fan of it.
Sure.
So
Yeah, it definitely has that more like grounded in reality kind of
hmm
thing. Like I loved the Dark Knight trilogy. Like I loved Christian Bale as Batman, and I loved that trilogy. But yeah, it'll be cool to have to see this movie and just see a little bit more practicality of it all. Um, so yeah, that's definitely something I'm pretty excited for.
yeah, man, absolutely. So
So
yes, very very excited. Cannot wait till March 4th gets here. So
yeah. And off air, I'm definitely going to pick your brain about some Batman comics that I should pick up
oh
because
totally, yeah.
as soon as this month ends and my chore of watching as many horror movies as I possibly can, whenever that is over, I'm gonna try and dive back into comic books because, like I said, it's been way too long since I've read, and it's high time for me to get back in.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, good sir, you want to pivot to our secondary topic for this evening?
Heck yeah, let's do it.
Right on, dope, dope. So, like I said, we are covering um, some horror stuff. We're just this is going to be a much more like chilled, relaxed, laid back conversation. I do have some talking points to go over, but this is just like the DC stuff. Like it's just going to be like a freewheeling conversation for the most part. So, um, I was curious. Did we've talked a lot about horror since you and I had first met and started talking. Um, did did you initially like grow up like as a kid with horror movies? Did you discover horror the genre at an relatively early age, or was it like later on in life, like in your preteens or teens?
Oh man, no, I was such a wimp back in the day. I could not stand horror films, and it wasn't. I mean, I just never watched them. I was terrified by them. I remember
Hmm.
my dad was watching Maximum Overdrive. It's a Stephen King adapted book to a film, and it's
Okay.
awful. It has Emilio Estevez in it, but the plot basically is something happens. There's like this electrical storm, thunderstorm thing, and it turns all the electronics against people. So we're talking
Hmm.
lawnmowers moving. I mean, not even just electronics. I'm saying like every inanimate thing. Hair dryers are attacking people, vacuums. It's just it's stupid. It's so stupid. But there were some scenes in it that just still kind of shook me to my core, and I was fucking terrified of that movie. Um,
Yeah.
so that one scarred me quite a bit at an early age. I'm gonna say 8 years old, just because that's whenever I can't remember my age of viewing of anything, I just say, oh, I was probably about 8. So let's just say
Right.
8. My
Okay.
brother and I used to share a bedroom, and we had Stars, the channel Stars. The movie Scream came on back in like '96, and
Hmm.
I was scared and I was mad and I went and I got my mom and I'm like, this is bullshit. He's watching Scream and he's not supposed to be watching it, and I don't want to watch it. So I was a wimp and I was a tattletale. It wasn't until yeah, right. I know it was crazy, and now I love Scream, which is it's insane. But I mean,
It's the circle of life.
absolutely, and that stuff just clicks at times. So it wasn't
Hmm.
until about Halloween H2O, and so that came out in '98. I probably saw it in '99, I want to say. So I was about
Okay.
12 years old. I was over at my friend his sleepover for his birthday, and I pulled the same shit where they all loved horror movies and they wanted to watch it, and I plugged my ears and I kind of started crying, and I felt like such an idiot in front of
Aw.
my friends. So I went and hung out with my friend's mom, and she was so sweet. We went and we drove to the grocery store to go get candy for everybody, and she was telling me about how when she was a young girl she saw the movie Carrie, and had the same reaction. Like her friends weren't making fun of her, but they were like, oh, why can't you watch this kind of stuff? So
Hmm.
I kind of sucked it up, and when we got back from Candy, I came in the last like 15 or 20 minutes of Halloween H2O, and I saw Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode cut Michael Myers' head off with an axe, and I was on
Hmm.
board. I was 100% on board. I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. So then I went to
Yeah.
school the next day, or it was the weekend, but I went to school on Monday, and I was telling people about that one scene, pretending like I saw the entire movie, and I was hooked, man. I started watching horror films after that.
Nice.
Friday the 13th, Nightmare. I'm sorry. Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. Halloween. That was like I had to watch the original, so I got it on VHS and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So yeah, I think that specific film, Halloween H2O, was my first time I really got into horror films.
Yeah. Now that's actually kind of a sweet story. Having someone to fall back to, and um, it'd be like, yeah, this shit's scary, and then she's like, why don't you tag along with me to the store? That just it sounds like something like one of my friends' moms would do, because I was pretty similar. Like, I was much more into like sci-fi stuff and comedy as a kid.
Right.
So like, I watched ET. Turns out that like a lot of kids were terrified of ET. To me, it was the coolest thing I had ever seen in my entire life. Like, I love that shit. And to learn later on in life that like people had nightmares about ET, I was like, the fuck is wrong with you? Just didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, I was a lot like that, where I watched, I don't know, I'd say maybe one or two things. I for some This just came to me. I have early memories of watching, what was it, Relic, or The Relic, uh, with my dad. It was like in broad daylight. I think we went to Blockbuster like after church one Sunday, and I showed it to him. I was like, "Can we rent this?" And he looked at it, and he looked at me. He was about to shake his head no, and he was like, "Eh, fuck it. Like, what's the worst that could happen?" And he's like, "Yeah." He was like, "You have to watch it
Famous
with
last
me,
words.
though." Right? He's like, "You have to watch with me, though. Uh, so if it gets too intense, then we can, turn it off or whatever." And I was like, okay, deal." And so we watch it, and I was like, all right, whatever. I don't really remember being super thrilled about it, or impressed with it. And then revisited it a couple years ago, I think, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember watching this movie, and I was like, oh man, this movie is kind of garbage.
Yeah, yeah. They don't
um,
age well at times.
yeah, that's why, I think you guys talked about this on your most recent episode that you did on, or one of your more recent episodes, where you covered American Werewolf in London, talking about practical effects, and just practical effects, like they just hold up like four times as better as special effects, because
Totally.
CG like ages so damn quickly, and practical effects, they're just, shit that they did in the 80s, it still looks fucking fantastic now. Like
Yeah,
the
I
thing,
agree.
like that movie is insane.
Yep.
And they should be embarrassed that they felt that a remake was warranted. So that's the thing. So let's see. Do is there a particular subgenre that you find yourself gravitating towards more than others, or or several subgenres? And tangentially related, are there any subgenres that you actively stay away from, either because you like hate them, like you can't stand them, or because you find the underlying concept of that subgenre too terrifying and you can't stand it?
Yeah, for sure. So I gravitate more towards the psychological or paranormal or slasher horror films. All three of those I think are really great. I do like
Hmm.
monster movies, but slashers are always a classic. Paranormal are the ones like we just did Paranormal Activity for the Don't Be Crazy podcast. Those ones
Right.
always get me because you can't see what's attacking you, and the psychological one is the stuff that scares me because I mean that's so realistic to now, but also it's more of a thought provoking style of a film. So I'm talking about Get Out, Us, and Midsommar. And
Yeah.
then in terms of, I guess this could also be psychological, but then it's also kind of witch style. But The Witch from Robert Eggers, I thought that movie
Hmm.
was absolutely brilliant, and I loved every minute of it. Um, in terms of slashers and stuff, I mean, newer ones that I'm thinking of would be the remake to Friday the 13th and the remake to Halloween, the
Hmm.
2018 reboot, remake, sequel, prequel, whatever shit it is. Um, Yeah, and then
All the above.
other paranormal movies. It's hard to beat The Conjuring or Sinister, or Insidious. I think those are fantastic, and The Conjuring just
Yeah.
opened up a whole door of other fun movies. So, yeah, I
Hmm.
definitely gravitate towards those a little more in terms of what I stay away from. So I am not a gore, disturbing type of guy. A lot of foreign horror, like Italian horror. It's really hard to watch a movie that is nothing but just gore and disturbing imagery. Even early Wes
Sure.
Craven, right? Like Last House on the Left is a really hard movie to watch.
Hmm.
Um, I really do like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I really do like The Hills Have Eyes. But both of those ones, both the remakes and the originals, are they are hard to watch. I still like them a lot though, but
Yeah.
some of the gore gets a little too out of control. I cannot stand Hostel. I think it's not scary. It's just gross to be gross, and
It's
yeah,
torture porn.
it's stupid. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
The later Saw films turn into that too. The early Saw
Yeah.
films are actually pretty good because there's a lot more of the psychological involved with that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely stay away from that gore disturbing category. And cannibals, no, pass, hard pass on that.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning cannibal movies on the American Werewolf in London episode. I was like, what is it? Cannibal Holocaust. That's like, I can't remember if that's on my 100 horror movies scratch off poster or not. I don't think it is, but it's supposed to be, one of the most iconic horror movies, despite it being about cannibals. And I just like have not been able to bring myself to watch it yet because I just the idea kind of
Disturbing, man.
yeah, it's highly upsetting. But yeah, like, you know, at the risk of sounding boring, like my likes and dislikes line up a lot with you. With a few exceptions. Um, for the most part, like I really like the stuff that has some sort of psychological element to it. You mentioned Get Out. I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Hereditary, I really really love. I know I brought that up a couple times on your podcast when I was on there, and talked about it a billion times on this podcast, but um, I can never have enough good things to say about it. Midsommar is fantastic. Yeah, and like, we talked about Paranormal Activity, just that whole franchise, all six movies. Like, I will die on this hill that this franchise has been slept on. Like,
Yeah.
I think, like, it's almost like mimetic and just straight up hilarious when you're like, yeah, like it doesn't get good until you get to like number six. Or like just finding out that there are six
I know it's pretty
Paranormal
crazy.
Activity movies. Yeah, it's kind of fun, but like you think about like how many Halloween movies that are there, how many Friday the 13th movies, how many Nightmare on Elm Street, like, franchises like that. Yes, they've been around a lot longer, so they've had more time to make them, but still, like, there's so many, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's a billion of those. The Amityville Horror, there's like 30 movies in that franchise. It's nuts. Um, but yeah, like I said, my views kind of they align a lot with yours. So, uh, do you have any favorite directors, either contemporary or classic or otherwise?
Specifically for horror, just since we're staying on that topic, Ari Aster, Robert
Hmm.
Eggers, Jordan Peele, like obviously Wes Craven, John Carpenter. It's I'm looking at those classics. I'm looking at the ones that are more modern and people who are just up and coming. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'll pretty much see anything that any of them were to pump out. Obviously Wes Craven, R.I.P. Won't be doing that anymore, but his legacy still
Hmm.
lives on with Scream coming out in January. And obviously, I'm a huge Scream fan, so I'm going to see that again. So,
Yeah.
I think that especially Carpenter, just so he was responsible for so many great films that I've seen throughout my life that just meant a lot to me. Not Oscar winning films, but I mean films that just meant a lot to me. So
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll echo basically all those. Plus, Mike Flanagan. I gotta put him in my
He's
my
great.
penalty box as
He's
well, because
great.
I'm about to pull a hat trick on with him on the my hashtag 31 days of horror thing that I've been doing on
Yeah.
social media. I've already cited Midnight Mass and Ouija Origins of Evil, but I just watched Hush the other night with my wife, and that movie, it's only 100 and it's only an hour and 20 minutes long, so it's less than 90 minutes. But holy shit, man, it feels like a lifetime. We were so stressed out. We were just drenched in sweat by the time that movie was over. Like, have you seen Hush?
I
Uh,
haven't, but I know the
okay.
plot, and I think it's a really brilliant idea.
Yeah, it's like it's such a simplistic idea. A girl who is deaf and mute. She lives basically in the wilderness, and a home intruder basically comes. He has a mask, and he's just fucking with her the entire movie, like playing mind games. And it's so stressful, but holy shit, is it a fucking great movie. It packs a punch in like 80 minutes. It's so good. But yeah, Mike Flanagan, he's probably he's right up there with like Ari Aster and Robert Eggers. Like there hasn't been one movie that he's done that I haven't seen. Like Doctor Sleep,
Yeah,
it's
loved it.
probably it's probably lower on my list of stuff that he's done, but I still enjoyed it. I think I need to rewatch it because
Oh,
I was
I
high.
loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like high half the time that I was watching it. So I feel like I need to rewatch it, and so I can, have a fresher point of view. But yeah, like from what I remember, like I dug it for the most part. Let's see. So in regards to book to film adaptations, do how do you feel about them in general? And do you feel that filmmakers have any sort of obligation to stay true to the source material, at least to a certain extent?
I mean, most films started as books, and I think people should realize that too.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of if a filmmaker should be true to the source material, no. If anybody's going to say otherwise, fuck off. Film is an art form. This is
Hmm.
this artist's rendition of it, and just because it didn't follow how the book went to a T does not make it a bad film. And now there are really bad adaptations, and that's fine because again, all
Sure.
these likes and dislikes are subjective. But my issue with people who say the book was better, it's one of the worst things I say as a cinephile. It's one of the worst things that I hear people say is, "Oh, the book was better." Um, the book will always be better in the sense of when you're reading that, the story, the movie that you see in your head is the only one that anyone will ever see. You and I might read the
Yes.
same book, we might think along the same lines, but maybe my protagonist is a redheaded woman where yours is a an ogre like Shrek.
Hmm.
So
Right.
it's just there's a it's nuanced and it's ridiculous when people try to compare the book to the film in such a strong and captious way. So
Yeah.
I absolutely I can say a movie's bad, like Halloween Kills, right? But David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, that was what they wanted to do. So that is totally fine. I'm
Hmm.
not going to yuck someone's yum because I didn't like it. So I
Right.
think that that can be problematic at times. But I'm always a fan of adaptations. I especially if I like Dune. Dune is coming out, and I am halfway through the book. I'm definitely not going to get done with it in time by the movie starts, but that's my fault because
Yeah.
I had plenty of time to read, but it's like a 600-page book, and I'm on like 340 right now. So whatever.
Dude, I started that book back in July. The audiobook at
Yeah.
that, and I still have, I think, about 3.5 hours left, and I could finish it by this Friday. I don't know if I will be able to though. I'm gonna try, but um, yeah,
It's
it's
just a
it's a
long
big
one.
one.
Yeah, it's long.
Yeah, but no, I totally get what you're saying. Like I feel pretty much the same way. Like, you know, I think that it it goes a long way for a director to, um, maybe get with the or have the author be like a consultant in the script writing process. Like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think, that that could lead to some good things, but it could also lead to some bad things because, you know, certain things that were, when that author wrote the book, they weren't writing a screenplay, they were writing a fucking novel. And they didn't intend necessarily, maybe like they were hoping that, like, hey, maybe this will get published and then after that, the book will get turned into a movie. But like, that's like thinking three steps ahead. um so their idea was just making a book, and then it's this person's job to translate the book to the screen. And not every single thing in every single book is going to translate onto the screen. So, like you said, directors have to take certain liberties, and change things up. And the red button is now blue, and this, that, and the other thing. So things have to change. It's just part of the process. uh, but with that said, there have been some excellent book to movie adaptations. Like, I was just talking a little bit ago about Fight Club. Like, that is, I've read the book and seen the movie a billion times. And I will say that is probably one of the best book to movie adaptations I have ever experienced. Like, it is, it's not only a great movie, but it stays super true to the source material. So, I guess it goes to show that both are possible, where you can stay true, and but you can also take a lot of liberties, and like you said earlier, have the movie still be good. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have any favorite book to film adaptations? I know, like you said, there's it's just safe to assume that every single movie nowadays is based on a book. But I was curious if you happen to have any favorites off the top of your head.
Totally. So the Lord of I always fumble. The Lord of the Rings is my all-time favorite movie. I just put all three of them together because you can't just sit down and watch one. It's like a potato chips. You got to keep going.
Yeah.
So, and I'm the extended cut guy. So 18 hours later, I got all three of them.
Oh
So,
God.
absolutely love Lord of the Rings. Sure. I mean, there are parts that I wish that they would have put in the movies, but we're talking 5-hour films already. So
Hmm.
I'm completely okay with the runtime. Gone Girl was actually a really good adaptation. Gillian Flynn, she was a screenwriter for that too, and it was David Fincher. Shawshank
Hmm.
Redemption, Stephen King book, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, we talked about Chuck Palahniuk for Fight Club.
Hmm.
One of my favorites. Absolutely love that movie. Again, a Fincher film. The Godfather Part 1 and 2. I think 2 does a lot of what Vito Corleone's backstory was in the Godfather book, in the first, well, just the main Godfather book by Mario Puzo. So that was really, really well done. And then finally, No Country for Old Men. I love the
Oh
Coen
yeah.
brothers so goddamn much. And Cormac McCarthy is one of the contemporary American writers, one of the great contemporary American writers of our generation.
Hmm. Yeah.
And he does have a certain way about him that can be kind of dry. And I think the Coen brothers did a very good job of exposing that dryness, but making it
Yes.
very intense, and
Hmm.
making a very interesting story about violence in America into a cat and mouse game portrayed on film where we don't know what the hell's going to happen. And then there's just beautiful scenery, amazing cinematography. And yeah, it's that's a good one. No Country for Old Men. So
God, I fucking love that movie. It's so
me too.
goddamn good.
Me
uh
too.
and it is kind of a low key horror movie,
Hmm.
actually. Like, I mean, if you want to, like, you could make an argument for, like, I mean, just having to stare at Javier Bardem's character, like,
Yeah.
that is a straight up fucking villain. Like, so scary.
Yeah. Anton Sugar.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's he's pretty terrifying. It's the coin toss is one of the scariest we've seen in film in a very long time. So
What's the most you ever lost in a coin toss?
yeah. I don't know, 25
I
cents.
don't know. I don't know what we're betting on, sir. I got to be
No.
closing up now. Um, so let's see.
The minority question.
So
Yeah.
Yes. So if you find yourself kind of in the minority of people who dislike a otherwise widely popular film or franchise, uh, do you feel like you have the ability to separate it where you can like look at it objectively and be like, yeah, objectively it's a good movie, um, but it's still not your cup of tea, or do you kind of feel like um, it's difficult to separate that objectivity and subjectivity?
I mean, I can talk about anything really. I can try to derive meaning from anything. And Halloween Kills, again, to be topical. I'm gonna have to talk about it for an hour tomorrow, and I already
Hmm.
know the stuff I'm gonna say and the reasons I don't like it. But I can also understand why people like it. Absolutely. The Exorcist, we talked about that one. That movie sucks. It's so boring, but I totally get why people like it. My mom even said, she's like, it's the scariest movie I've ever seen. So I try to vicariously put myself, through these experiences and say, if I saw this movie in the 70s, I would be singing a different tune right now. So I
Hmm.
definitely can do that. In terms of like when people latch onto things like so Squid Game, right? I'm sure Squid Game is amazing. I have not had an opportunity to watch it yet, but
Yeah, me neither.
I get a little apprehensive when things catch fire this quick. Just like Bird Box, we were talking about this on Paranormal Activity. With Bird
Yeah.
Box, that one is tough because the trends of people telling me I need to see something quickly makes me go, I don't know if I want to rush out to see it. Obviously,
Sure.
I'm gonna. There are certain things that I like, little flags that I have that I like. So I'm like, cool, I need to see that. So Midnight Mass, absolutely loved it. You and I were talking about that. I thought it
Hmm.
was fantastic, and
Yep.
that one had a lot of hype also. But it pushed the buttons that I needed it to push. So yeah, I mean, I think I can totally objectively appreciate it when people like those trendy films.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I I feel like I can go both ways on this. I feel like most of the time, if I don't like a movie, but it is, it's got like a high Rotten Tomato score, or, it's widely appreciated. Like, I'd say the best example of this is the Scream franchise. And that's exactly why I did the episode, had my good friend Amanda on, uh, because like it's her like favorite horror franchise of all time. And I was like, please come on and explain to me why this is good, because I watched all the Scream movies, and like no doubt about it, the first Scream movie is fucking phenomenal. But a lot of my opinions going into that are looking at it from an objective point of view. Slashers that are grounded in reality just do not do it for me. Like the reason why I like Michael Myers and Freddy and Jason is because they all have this somewhat supernatural, element to them. And I don't know why I like that better, or why that is more appealing to me, but it is. It's just that's just the way it is. And for whatever reason, a slasher that's that could actually be your boyfriend, or your boyfriend and his best friend, like it's just, it doesn't do much for me. But like I said, it did a lot for the slasher genre. It basically brought it back from the dead after the genre did nothing for like over a decade. So I totally appreciate the franchise
Yeah.
and what it did for the slasher subgenre. Um, let's see. Uh, let's see. Let's skip the elements one. We talked a little bit about foreign horror, or you kind of brought it up when we were talking about stuff that you don't like. What's your experience with foreign horror, and have you seen a ton of foreign horror films?
Not a ton, but I mean, if you gave me a week, I would probably be like, "Oh yeah, duh." I obviously forgot about that one. It's just that stuff happens.
Right.
But for me, the one that pops out the most is Korean horror. I believe
Okay.
that they do some amazing stuff. Squid Game is technically Korean horror,
Hmm.
but Netflix has a lot of that, and Netflix is a great conduit for Korean horror films. But Train to
Yeah.
Busan is probably one of the more
Hmm.
popular ones. They did one last year, I think, called Hashtag Alive, and that one was awesome. is a zombie film. Old Boy technically is a horror film. The Host, uh, Thirst is about vampires, and it's like this crazy ass movie.
Hmm.
I saw The Devil. I have not seen that one yet, but that's a slasher slash kind of revenge movie. Let the Right One In. That's not Korean, but
Yeah,
that's French,
right. It's
I believe.
Swedish.
Swedish, is it? Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
And then
yeah. I think it's Swedish.
the U.S. remade it, but
Right,
what else? The Babadook. I think that's Australian. Devil's
right.
Backbone. That I don't know where that is from. And then His House, I think it's British, but it's about Sudanese refugees. But so Korean horror, and then you get to some Europe and stuff where it can be real good. And I have seen some Aussie films. They also don't necessarily follow certain rules, which is weird because their MPAA or whatever iteration they have of it is really strict. So it's weird to see
Hmm.
movies like Wolf Creek or like High Tension get a lot of, I don't know. I think High Tension might have been French, but for some reason I thought
Sure.
they were in Australia. So yeah, I would like to get more into foreign horror. It's just I don't know. I think I just need to catch up on everything in general. So yeah.
Yeah, nah, I feel ya. Have you seen Ringu, the original Ring movie?
I have not. I actually, The Ring, the American version. It's an okay movie. That was like the last question where people were freaking out about it. I was like, it's okay. But no, I've heard Ringu was good. I've heard that, and like The
Yeah.
Grudge were good. The original versions.
Hmm. Yeah, so embarrassingly, I just caught up with Ringu, and it's embarrassing because I'd say when I first discovered the horror genre, like in my formative years, like when I was a teenager in high school, I went to go see The Ring with my then girlfriend, now wife, and it scared the ever living piss out of me. Like, I swear to God, this is like, and still to this day, it remains one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And it's so bizarre, like, because it's directed by Gore Verbinski, that has done all these adventure movies like Pirates of the Caribbean and the Lone Ranger and shit like that. Like, he does adventure movies, and then he's got this one outlier that is horror. Like, it's so bizarre. But yeah, I love it, and so I finally got around to watching the Japanese original, and I loved it. I It brought a little something different to the table um, than the US remake. I It was a little different in a sense where they didn't use much like either special effects and practical effects, like the closet scene in The Ring, where it's like I saw her face and like it just cuts to the closet, she's opening the closet, and like you know just the horrifying makeup effects that they did for this poor girl, this the character is just incredible. And that was the first time I shit my pants in the theater going to see that movie. um but in the Japanese original, they literally have the characters doing this. Like,
Nice.
for those of you not watching, it is like I'm literally just holding my jaw open. Like, they just had the actors like have this like crazed expression on their face, which is like off-putting. But backtracking from The Ring to Ringu, it's a little like, that's kind of silly, but I still felt like the movie was it was pretty solid. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then last question. So true crime has become like this increasingly popular like phenomenon thing over the last 5 to 10 years or so, between documentaries, docuseries, podcasts, etc. And how despite their similarities, you know, um, true crime and horror, there does seem to be this dividing line between horror fans and true crime, where like that I've noticed at least, where true crime fans have this weird perception of horror and have a weird taste in horror movies. Um, to the point where they're just like, "Oh, that's not scary or that's stupid," and I'm like, "Are you like what fucking planet are you living on?" So I wanted to get your opinion, like how in general, like how do you feel about true crime? Have you ever seen any like documentary or docu series um, that dealt in true crime that you felt was even more horrifying than a horror movie? And yeah,
I'm I'm not a true crime fan. I think
no,
it's just Justin and I have talked about this on our podcast. It's one of those things that I understand why it's there,
mm,
and I understand why people like it. I understand why women like it, especially because uh, it kind of presents this idea of keeping your guard up, and anybody could be a killer, anybody could be a psychopath. Stay sexy, don't get murdered, and that's great
mm-hmm,
and all. It's great to be aware of that kind of stuff. But the thing that bugs me is I really want to make sure that people understand that when you crack open your bottle of wine, when you throw on a TV show and you binge it on Netflix, that the entertainment that you're getting, you keep in mind that there are victims out there who have to live through this stuff over and over again, in the sense of they've lost loved ones. So these family members of these people who've been murdered, or these people who've gone missing, they have to have constant reminders when people fire up Netflix, or every
yeah,
5 years stuff happens. Um, so for me, I can't find joy in finding in watching something like that, and seeing it as disturbing. I mean, I live in the US. I know what kind of fucked up world we have. So I think it's very smart to always keep your wits about you. And so the positive to come out of this true crime is, yeah, it helps people be more aware of their surroundings, of things around it. But at the same time, try not to think that every single person is out there trying to kill you. That's the,
sure,
the only thing I'll say from that. It's tough. I'm a really great guy, or so I think I am. And I've definitely had moments where girls are like, "Whoa, geez, are you a serial killer?" Like, just because I wanted to exchange phone numbers off of a dating app, and I'm like, yeah, hey, this probably isn't going to work if I'm trying to just exchange a phone number. But you know what?
sure,
I don't know their backstory. I don't know what things have affected them. So they very well
mm-hmm,
could have a good reason for having such a visceral reaction. But it's it is a bummer. I'm not going to sit here and say that true crime caused that, but I do see that there has been an influx in a lot of that kind of stuff. And whenever I tell people, oh, I have a podcast, and I'm like, what kind of podcast do you listen to? And they're like, oh, true crime. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So it's fine. It's some of them are really cool, but it's not my cup of tea. It's not for me, man.
Yeah, that's my wife listens to a little bit of true crime. It's not all true crime, but she listens to a wide variety of stuff. Basically, every single podcast out there she listens to except mine. And I'm like, what the fuck am I, chopped liver? Like, it's and pretty much everything that we talk about on the podcast is like right up her alley because she's a nerd as well. But for some reason, she just yeah, never wants to listen.
Wow.
Um, do you ever feel like true crime ever crosses that line into being like exploitative? Like, does it ever come off that way to you?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think so, but I can't speak to specifics because I don't know. I think the whole influx of like Ted Bundy, where you get this Zac Efron movie, you have this docu series on Discovery ID, then you have a Netflix series, you have all these things popping up at once. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously this pattern is there for a reason, and people are trying to make money off of this, and that bugs the hell out of me that it has to
Yeah.
keep coming back, and people have to keep looking at this monster and seeing the evil that he did. I mean, we should not be speaking his name. I understand that it's a part of history, and we need to again be aware of our surroundings and the people we're with, and pretty much this can happen to anybody sort of mentality. Totally understand that, but I do not like the exploitation of it, in the sense of I want this for entertainment. So
Yeah.
it's that really bugs the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way. Like eh, that Ted Bundy, that rollout of like content where it was like three or four things within the span of like 6 months is just like this drop of material like out of nowhere, and yeah, like a lot of it just kind of felt like a cash grab where they're like, let's see how much money we can make off of this fucker.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And at that point in time, it felt a little exploitative, where it's just like just kind of gross. And you know, and if I think about true crime enough, it starts to kind of feel that way for me, just in general, where I'm like it feels gross, like just listening to stories about people and like their pain, and having their loved ones like murdered and stuff is just, I don't know. It feels like getting entertainment from, you know, like real life stuff, and just can feel gross at times. But like, kind of like what you were saying earlier, like there is merit in it, where especially like you mentioned, it tends to attract women a lot, and it makes sense. Like it's like preparatory, like you learn how serial killers' minds work, and so you can, men and women, or women and men, they can kind of learn how to better stay safe when out by yourself or out with friends. And so it's a two-sided coin, double-edged sword, whatever you want to call it. So
Totally.
just yeah, one of those things.
Yeah, man.
So but that I think that's gonna about do it for everything that we have lined up as far as questions, DC stuff and horror movie stuff. We could talk for hours and hours longer, but for the sake of um respecting your time, my time, and our listeners' time, we will keep it at that length. So
Yeah.
Zach, why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you on the internet, how they can go follow your podcast and follow you on social media?
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called the Don't Be Crazy podcast. It is a movie podcast where we discuss the merits of specific films, what makes them good or bad, and we try not to make outlandish statements like crazy statements. So a lot of fun. We just had David on for the Paranormal Activity episode, which is posted as of the recording of this podcast on
Hmm.
Monday, October 18th. So that is available. Check out our backlog. We have some really awesome ones. And then our Twitter handle for that is at DB Crazy Pod. So DB Crazy Pod. There, same thing for Instagram. It's at DB Crazy Pod. And then my personal Twitter is at ZachDale60, and that's ZACH Dale 60. So yeah, you can message us. You can message me. You can tell me how crazy I am for not liking true crime. I don't care, man. I love the interactions. I love new listeners, and we have a fun show. So please, yeah, check us out there.
Yeah, you guys put on an amazing movie podcast. Like I've
Thank you.
listened to a bunch, and I'm not blowing smoke as much as it might sound like I am. Like I'm not blowing smoke. Like it's hands down my favorite that I've listened to. Like it's the way you structure your questions. I meant to touch on this earlier, back before we kind of dove into all this stuff. Like I've never heard a movie podcast where you guys ask the kind of questions that you ask, where they're always directly related to the movie you're covering, but they take like a step outside the box, if that makes sense, and kind of ask like a much broader question. And I love those questions that you guys bring up and ask each other on the podcast. I think it's a lot of fun to listen to, and very insightful, very thoughtful, thought provoking, and yeah, just keep it up. You guys are doing a great job. I love listening to it. So
Cool. Thank you so much.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's been a fun journey.
for
it
sure.
took us a while to kind of figure it out, and we're still figuring things out too. But no,
Yep.
it's a blast, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's always going to be a process. We've been doing this podcast for, well, I mean, it's me, but Zach, he just came on board a couple months ago or so. But yeah, it's been, I think we're going on 5 years. It'll be in February, and it's, yeah, we're still getting our footing, but it's been a blast for the most part.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, man.
it is a fun gig. Um, But yeah, listeners, don't forget, follow us on all social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Uh, we are active on everything, but we are the most active on our Facebook group. It is the Garage Podcast Fans and Listeners group. It is free to join, and we do all kinds of like nerdy polls and conversations on a pretty regular basis. So you can hop in there and chat with us and throw us some topic ideas that we might consider later on down the road. Of course, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't already. If you feel so generous to throw us a couple of doll hairs, you can join our team of Patreon members, where you get stuff like behind the scenes looks into the podcast, early access to content, discounts from our Etsy shop, and you get to help us out with programming, like picking out topics. Our Patreon members, their suggestions are much highly more considered than everyone else's. So that's kind of the difference there. But yeah, thank you so much, Zach, again for joining us. I greatly appreciate you coming on the podcast. Um, Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake. Bye.